With Capcom's recent announcement that they are intensely focusing on reviving old franchises, many of us have been wondering what could potentially be on the table. They do have a massive library at their disposal, and luckily, based on Capcom's recent track record, anyone who is worried about the upcoming Onimusha and Okami titles can likely be written off as completely and utterly insane. With 2 fantastic Resident Evil remakes in recent years, 1, okay, an excellent Monster Hunter title, Devil May Cry 5, Street Fighter 6, the list goes on. It seems like we're in for some potential greatness from the developer going forward. And I know this may seem like Capcom fanboying, and some of you may have potentially clicked away from the video, but I haven't always liked everything they've ever made. Devil May Cry 2 and Street Fighter 5, just for a couple examples. I just recognize quality when I see it. And with Capcom's recent streak, I think it's very exciting that revivals are on the table for basically all of the following game series. Breath of Fire. My love for JRPGs and turn-based RPGs is no secret, and the genre is not dead by any stretch of imagination. Because of this, it's about time we received a revival of the Breath of Fire series. Much like Zelda always features a Link, a Zelda, and a Ganon, and the Triforce, the Breath of Fire entries are always focused around a boy named Ryu who can shapeshift into a dragon, a girl named Nina with wings, and the adventures they go on, with some excellent sprite work in the earlier titles. Breath of Fire 4 is usually the one I've seen the most celebrated, and I'm personally most familiar with that one since I've replayed it a few times, so I'm obligated to chuck that up as my favorite. Now, some may argue that Breath of Fire is not quote-unquote dead, since Breath of Fire 6 technically came out in 2016, but due to the reception and handling of that release, I beg to differ.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
The game was released on Windows, Android, and iOS in 2016, only in Japan. It was a textbook cash grab revival of an old franchise, with microtransactions galore, and it was regarded by many fans as hastily cobbled together. Some even considered it a ripoff of MapleStory. The title barely lasted a year before it was completely shut down, not even coming close to the success of other JRPG titles turned MMO, like the Dragon Quest MMO and critically acclaimed MMORPG Final Fantasy XIV. Here's hoping the series can treat its Dragon fans with a proper revival and release in the future. Lost Planet. I initially didn't even consider including this on the list because I thought it was too recent, but nah, it's been over a decade since the last proper Lost Planet release. Man, I really felt myself aging on that one. Now, for those unfamiliar with the series, Lost Planet is a series of third-person shooters that take place on a planet called EDN3. The game utilizes a mission-based structure and has players collecting thermal energy to survive, and occasionally fighting enemies with a good old giant fighting robot. Giant fighting robots will always be one of the coolest things ever made, so that has me locked in, just like I am for my fantasy Titanfall 3 game that will never, ever come out. The first title, Lost Planet Extreme Condition, is generally regarded as the best, with the series going on sort of a downslope from there. But considering the excellent changes Capcom has made to the bow guns in Monster Hunter, yes, that's going to be my example, I'm confident the studio could pull out a surprisingly good third-person shooter from this. Capcom will soon join the ranks of other surprisingly good third-person shooter games like Guardians of the Galaxy. That is not a Capcom game for the record, I just consider it criminally underrated. Please play it if you ever get the chance. Sengoku Basara. I don't know if I can ever forgive Capcom for releasing only the third game here and then keeping the franchise secluded in Japan again until 2016 when they just stopped making console and PC games for it. Seriously, the last thing for this was a 2020 mobile game that only came out in Japan, and not a good one like Star Rail or Girls Frontline 2. Sengoku Basara will be an immediate hit for you if you're a Dynasty Warriors fan, but it somehow even cranks that up to 11. Date Masamune wields 6 swords at once, putting Roronoa Zoro to shame. Tadakatsu Honda is a giant fighting robot. Uesugi Kenshin has a ninja called Kasuga who is immediately going to get 7,000 pieces of additional fan art if and when she is revealed in a new trailer for this game. It just oozes style on a level of Devil May Cry. The game takes place during the aforementioned Sengoku period of Japan, where all the regional warlords were battling it out to rule the land. If you played Samurai Warriors, strategy game Nobunaga's Ambition by Koei Tecmo, Nioh, etc., you'll be very familiar with the characters from this time period. If Warring State Samurai with crazy DBZ level attacks are up your alley, you should not only check out the game if you can get a copy of it on PlayStation 3, very difficult to do in the West, but you should also definitely check out the multi-season anime series. It's actually really good, and season 1 of the anime even has one of the best anime openings of all time. I mean, just look at some of this. Dino Crisis. Now, if you're not what the kids refer to these days as a gooner, obsessed with the lack of Ashley's panty shots, then you're probably well aware that the Resident Evil 4 remake was sublime. Can you just imagine taking that pitch-perfect gameplay and applying it to a new or remade Dino Crisis? That's just an absolute instant recipe for success. Now, the entire premise of Dino Crisis at its core has always been simple. Resident Evil is all about being attacked by zombies in confined areas and trying to survive. The second you replace the zombies with dinosaurs, you have a Dino Crisis on your hands. Sometimes a simple idea is just what makes a game series truly special and great. The same can be said for Dino Crisis. This series hasn't had an entry since Dino Crisis 3 way back in 2003, and while the latest news from Capcom back in 2017 said there were no plans for any sort of remake or remaster, well, a lot can happen in 7 years. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if this was the most likely candidate among anything I will put on this list for a remake or new entry, just because of how easy I feel it would be to craft it in success using the framework already in place from Resident Evil. They already have an award-winning formula, all they got to do is apply it. Viewtiful Joe, another potential revival from Clover Studios, much like Okami. And the second to last entry on this list, Viewtiful Joe is an insanely stylish side-scrolling beat-em-up with an incredible cult following. Now, if you know what tokusatsu is, you're already probably a fan of these games. If not, well, tokusatsu is a form of Japanese media that is live action and makes heavy use of practical special effects. If you watch Power Rangers growing up, you've seen tokusatsu. If you've watched an old Godzilla movie, you've seen tokusatsu. Other popular series from the modern day include Kamen Rider and Ultraman. Viewtiful Joe straight up pulls your protagonist into a tokusatsu movie, with you making use of your magnificent Power Ranger-style powers to plow through hordes of enemies and rescue your girlfriend. With the increasing popularity of beat-em-ups such as Turtles in Time, River City Girls, and the upcoming Double Dragon we're getting, this is gonna find a home in the library of any true beat-em-up fan, and it could also introduce the genre to a whole new era of fans, just like Castle Crashers did for me. Just please also give me a Kamen Rider that's unlockable as a bonus. Thank you. And finally, Godand. Strangely enough, at least in my circles, Godand has seen a recent surge in popularity like my beloved and previously underappreciated Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. And this is due to just how equally out-of-pocket Godand is as well. Just listen to the words about to come out of my mouth, okay? The protagonist of this game is Gene, one of the God Hands, people who hold the power of God within their fists. A demonic society is hunting him, looking to resurrect the fallen angel Demon King Angra, and that organization, of course, wants to use him for world domination. And then we get scenes like this.
Well, at least Olivia's not as bad as that crazy bitch. She went out again. Yeah! Olivia!
Now, crazy enough, this game was developed by the team behind Resident Evil 4. It has a musical score by the very talented Masafumi Takada, best known at this time for scoring the Danganronpa series. Heck, most of Godhand's team has gone on to make some incredible titles like Mad World, Bayonetta, and yes, Metal Gear Rising. This is one of those sleeper titles that was very formative, something that has laid the groundwork for stylish action games of today and other cult classics. Asura's Wrath, Stellar Blade, Nier Automata, and even Final Fantasy XVI. I would argue that none of these games would exist without the groundwork that was laid by Godhand. If that doesn't make a good enough case for you about why this title deserves a sequel or remake, then I really don't think anything will. Well, that's what I got for you. Let me know if you're excited for any of these Capcom classics to potentially be remade, and let me know if there's a Capcom series that I may have missed down below. I know certain titles might seem like glaring omissions like Marvel vs. Capcom, but I was hoping to draw on titles that have received less time in the spotlight. Plus, I think we all know that another game is likely eventually coming in the Marvel vs. Capcom series, because UMVC 3 is still universally beloved, even now. Be sure to check out the Discord, Patreon, and Ko-fi. Big thanks to everyone on those platforms, and to you on YouTube for your support. And yeah, maybe like and subscribe if you've watched the video to the end. Like, you already clearly liked it if you're watching till now, so just do it. Have a phenomenal day, and I will see you in the next one.